6th and 7th graders. It's Jim Meyer, and I'm back to talk a little bit about the second article. And today we're going to kind of look at the work of Christ and what he did. So I want you to turn, if you've got your catechisms close, I want you to turn to page number 176. And we're going to kind of read that bold part right there at the top of the page. And what we're going to be focusing on that. And it starts off with this: who has redeemed me, a lost and condemned person, purchased and won me from all sins, from death and from the power of the devil, not with gold or silver, but with his holy precious blood and with his innocent suffering and death. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. Why did Jesus have to come in the first place? Why did he even have to come? Long time ago, galaxy far, far away, Adam and Eve disobeyed God by eating the fruit that God had said not to. And so that brings us to the point where sin was entered in the world. Because of that disobeying of God, sin was brought into the world. And because of that, there was a separation between us and God. And that brought in death and all that other stuff. There's the punishment for our sin. And that original sin that started with Adam and Eve has been passed down and inherited by us. And so just like Adam and Eve had the punishment that came with sin, which was death, we have that same punishment that comes with our sin which is death. Okay, God looked at that and said, I don't like that. Okay, I don't like being separated from my creation. And so he came up with this rescue plan. He could have easily just said, you know what, I'm done with y'all. You messed up. You ruined my creation, and so I'm out of here. But that's not what God did. He came up with the plan to rescue us, and that became who Jesus is. And it was out of God's love and his compassion for his creation that he sent his son to take on that punishment in our place, so that we could be reunited with him when we look at our life and our eternal life in heaven. So okay, let's start. Let's look at that. How did Jesus rescue us? What was the rescue plan? So Jesus was going to come down. He was going to live here on earth, be born, and we talked a little bit about that last week with Pastor. He was going to be born through Virgin Mary and all that thing, with his end goal being that his death on the cross, that he paid the entire penalty of my sin and guilt. Okay, that Jesus' death covered it all. Okay. By his death on the cross, he fully endured and appeased the wrath of God toward all people, thereby reconciling us with God. And 3, by his death on the cross, he destroyed the power of sin to enslave me. That we are no longer a slave to that sin because of what Jesus did on the cross. Now, are we still guilty of sin? Unfortunately, yes. I wish, 2,000 years ago when Jesus died on the cross, that sin was entirely wiped away, but that's not the case. We still have sin in this world, and the result of that sin is you and I are going to die. But we don't have to fear that death because we know that eternal life will be with Jesus and God in heaven because of what Jesus did. Jesus did this when he was here on earth and all that stuff. He was completely 100% human and 100% God at the same time. Do not try to do the math on that because it messes it up. Our world does not live in that kind of world. Where God is 100% human, or Jesus was 100% human and 100% God. When we talk about Jesus being 100% human, we call that his state of humiliation. State of humiliation. Where Jesus experienced the same emotions and stress and feelings that you and I feel. He was tempted like you and I are. He was hungry, he was sad, he was happy. But he dealt with all those emotions and all that stuff and temptation, but he did not sin. Which is a little bit different than you and I when it comes to that. Jesus was also 100% God, and so we call that his state of exaltation. His state of exaltation. When we see Jesus performing miracles, okay, you and I can't do that. We see Jesus walking on water. You and I can't do that. He descended into hell, as we say in that third or in the Apostles' Creed. He rose from the dead. That ain't going to happen when you and I die. And he ascended into heaven. You and I cannot do those things. Okay, as you look at getting into class time now and getting ready for this little work of Christ, work of what Jesus did when he was on the cross, I want you to kind of think about, maybe bring some of your highlights when you think about Jesus in his state of humiliation, You know, when we see Jesus as a human being, when we see the stress and the stuff that he had to deal with, you know, where is a time in your life when you can identify with some of the stress and the temptation that Jesus was dealing with? But also look at his state of exaltation. What were some of your favorite miracles that he did? Or favorite things where we see Jesus as being God? All right, guys, have a great evening or whenever you're watching this, and we look forward to seeing you in class. Thanks.